Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving straight into Osho's profoundly eye-opening take on the Ashtavakra Maha Geeta. And honestly, this might just hold the absolute secret to stopping that exhausting war we constantly wage with our own minds. You know, if you've ever felt completely drained by overthinking, or caught in this endless, frustrating loop of trying to control every single one of your emotions, the shift in perspective we're talking about today is just fascinating. We're talking about moving away from trying to aggressively micromanage every little detail of our lives, and instead embracing the effortless art of witnessing.
Okay, so let's kick things off with a story about an old blind man living in a house. Now, this man was told by doctors that a simple operation could actually restore his sight. But, surprisingly, he refused. His logic? Well, he lived with his 8 sons, his 8 daughters-in-law, and his wife. He figured, hey, that's 34 eyes in my house. Why do I need my own? He foolishly relied on his family's 34 borrowed eyes instead of just fixing his own vision. But then, one night, the unthinkable happens. The house catches fire. Absolute panic strikes. His family, completely terrified, runs out to save themselves, their own eyes guiding their own feet to safety. And the blind man? He was left behind, groping in the dark, and tragically perished in the flames. He realized, far too late of course, that in a real crisis, only your own eyes can save you.
And this brings us right to our first major theme, which is this fascinating trap of borrowed knowledge. You see, the knowledge we borrow from others, even from great scriptures, is completely useless when we are faced with life's real fires. We walk around filled to the brim with borrowed advice, theories we've read in books, and profound-sounding words we've heard from gurus. But just like those borrowed eyes in that burning house, when a true internal crisis hits you, like deep grief, overwhelming anxiety, or the very real fear of death, someone else's words are simply not going to pull you out of the flames. You have to be able to see it for yourself. To put that into perspective, just imagine 2 travelers walking on a pitch-black path. One has a lantern, the other doesn't. They're walking together, and for a while, that one light serves them both perfectly fine. But eventually, they reach a crossroads, and their paths have to diverge. The one with the lantern walks away safely down his path. But the other traveler? He is suddenly left completely in the dark, trembling and terrified. Borrowed knowledge is exactly like that shared lantern. It illuminates things for a brief moment, but it can never permanently be yours. True wisdom, on the other hand, means lighting your own inner lamp so the light shines from within you. So, the absolute crucial point here is that true knowledge isn't about just memorizing words like a parrot. If a philosophy or a piece of so-called wisdom doesn't actively, tangibly liberate you from your suffering, then it is just dead weight. It's a theory, not a truth. Osho emphasizes that real truth is a direct experience. It's a realization so incredibly deep that it instantly shatters your chains. Because, look, if you're still stressed out and fearful despite all the hundreds of self-help books you've read, then you haven't actually touched your own truth yet. Let's move to our next core idea and see how this all builds into King Janaka's sudden, shocking realization. King Janaka is the central figure of the Ashtavakra Gita, and he experiences this sudden spiritual awakening that literally hits him like a bolt of lightning. He's looking out at this massive crowd of people, and suddenly that crowd feels like an empty forest to him. It's not that he went blind to the people, but the way he saw them had completely and totally transformed.
Now, what's really amazing here is Janak's sheer astonishment. He literally cries out, wonder. He isn't just stating some dry theory he read in a textbook. He is completely overwhelmed by this sudden, visceral vision that we are all just connected waves of the exact same ocean. For the very first time, he doesn't see me and you. He doesn't see any separation at all. He just sees one single life force breathing through absolutely everyone. The realization is so sudden and shocking that he can hardly believe his own eyes. And you know what's wild? Osho points out that modern science actually backs this up. We are constantly, invisibly exchanging energy. When you look at someone with love, you are sending a measurable, vital energy right toward them. When you look at someone with hate, you project a destructive force. I mean, have you ever sat near a really sad person and suddenly felt your own mood just plummet? Or sat next to someone super joyful and felt instantly uplifted? We are flowing into each other constantly. The rigid boundaries we think we have, like our skin or our personal space, they're really just illusions. We are deeply and invisibly connected.
But that begs a pretty big question. If we are all just one eternal energy, why are we always so terrified? Well, it comes down to what's called jiva shana, our gripping, desperate desire to cling to physical life. We are just terrified of letting go. We build big houses, we amass wealth, and we create these intricate, long-term plans entirely out of the underlying terror that our physical existence will end. And in doing all that, we completely miss the eternal reality operating right behind it. Janaka completely shatters our biggest illusion right here. He realizes, I am not the body is not mine, I am pure consciousness. Think about it, our fear of death only exists because we falsely identify with something that is absolutely guaranteed to die, our physical body. It's like this. If you truly believe you are a sandcastle, you are going to be terrified of the incoming tide. But if you realize you are the ocean itself, well, what is there to possibly fear? To show us just how completely blind this physical clinging makes us, Osho tells this really dark but honestly kind of hilarious Tibetan story. Picture this. Two owls are sitting on a branch. One has a snake clamped in its beak, the other has a mouse. Now, when the snake sees the mouse, it completely forgets that it's currently trapped in an owl's beak and is about to be eaten. Its mouth literally starts watering for the mouse. And the mouse? Despite also being in the literal jaws of death, it starts trembling in absolute fear of the snake. It's completely absurd, but it perfectly proves how our sensory cravings and our petty little fears completely blind us to the constant looming presence of death. We get so distracted by the tiny things we want or fear that we completely miss the massive reality of our own mortality. So, how do we actually break free? How do we escape this terrifying trap of desires, fears, and false identities? If fighting our nature doesn't work and indulging it just keeps us blind, what exactly is a way out? Well, this brings us to the most powerful concept of all, the art of witnessing. The answer is beautifully captured in this classic story of Buddha. He was traveling one day and asked his disciple, Ananda, to fetch some water from a nearby stream. But some bullock carts had just crossed through it, stirring up all this mud and dead leaves. So Ananda comes back and says, the water's way too dirty to drink. But Buddha insists he go back. Ananda goes back and forth a few times. And eventually, just by waiting on the bank without doing a single thing, the dirt settles entirely on its own. The water becomes crystal clear. And just like that muddy stream, we have to simply sit on the bank of our minds and wait without interfering. If you jump in and try to clean the mud yourself, you are only going to stir it up more. This totally clears up a massive misconception. You have the traditional ascetic, the yogi who aggressively fights his mind and starves his desires, and on the other hand, you have the hedonist, the bogi who overly indulges in absolutely every whim. But guess what? They are both trapped in the exact same illusion of control. They both falsely think they are the doer. The yogi thinks, I'm going to force the universe to stop, and the bogi thinks, I'm going to force the universe to give me more. Both of them end up completely exhausted because they are trying to control the uncontrollable. Because here is the crazy paradox of the human mind. If you try to force it to be quiet, you just create utter chaos. Imagine a guru gives a man a secret mantra for peace, but he adds one little rule. While chanting this, whatever you do not think of a monkey. What do you think happens? That poor man spends the next 3 years tortured by visions of monkeys. If you try to suppress a thought, you're actually handing it power. You'll end up with an entire jumping army of monkeys in your head. Fighting the mind is a guaranteed way to lose to it. We suffer so much because we honestly believe we are in charge. It's exactly like this arrogant little rooster who lived in a village. The old woman who owned him got really angry at the villagers one day and threatened them, saying, I'm taking my rooster away and you're all gonna die in the dark. She actually genuinely believed the sun relied on her rooster's morning crow to rise. We laugh at that, but we do the exact same thing. We falsely believe that our anxieties, our stressing, and our continuous frantic efforts are what keep the universe running. But the truth is, the sun is going to rise anyway. Therefore, the ultimate true solution is Sakshi Bhava, becoming an impartial witness. There is this great story of Mullah Nasruddin on a sinking ship. Everyone around him is screaming, crying, and running around in total chaos. But Mullah, he is just standing there perfectly calm. Someone runs up and yells, "Are you crazy? The ship is sinking." And Mullah just calmly replies, "What do I care? It's not my father's ship." When you finally realize that your mind isn't really you can remain perfectly calm even when it's throwing a massive storm. It's just a ship. It simply isn't yours to save. As we wrap up this explainer, I really want you to consider trying this out today. The next time anger, fear, or anxiety bubbles up, just see what happens if you don't fight it. Try looking at the dramas of your own mind like they're just shadows projected on a cinema screen. People cry and yell at the movies, completely forgetting it's literally just light and shadow. So ask yourself right now, are you caught up in the tragedy on the screen, or are you finally ready to sit back in the audience and just watch the show? Try being the watcher. You might just find that freedom you've been looking for.